Welcome back, YouTube. What's going on? Hope you're doing well. This week, I've got quite a bit to show you. I've added in 3 new enemies to the game, bringing the total up to 4. I just have 1 more after this. Everything's coming together week by week. It's taken some time, but we're making some progress. So let's take a look at it and see what I've got done. Alrighty. So I thought we might begin today's video with a little bit of a sizzle reel showing off some of the monsters I made. Here we have the turtle enemy, and I also wanted to talk a bit about the AI and kind of the game design philosophy I had with all of this. So my approach with doing these enemies was to have each of them kind of function individually, and hopefully layering together will make for fun gameplay. This comes from a bunch of things. I kind of just like that philosophy with game design of add in a new enemy and kind of throw a new twist at the player, and then how does that change the gameplay with the existing enemies? And the other reason for this was with the AI, initially I was really gung-ho. I wanted to kind of have some almost swarm behavior of the ability of for instance, with that turtle, you're going to be able to, the turtle will go in its shell and the player can't damage the turtle. So I thought maybe I could have the demon enemies we've looked at already hide behind the turtle. But starting to write the AI code, I found it very difficult to coordinate all of these enemies where each of them has to make their own decisions and be functioning individually, and then also making them be aware of each other. I was really having a hard time. And so that also kind of influenced, I figured, why not have all of these enemies kind of function for themselves and then set them up so that hopefully they'll interact well with each other. So the overview here of the 3 enemies is the turtle is going to be able to go in its shell so the player can't damage it. You'll have to melee the turtle to get it out of its shell. The bear is kind of a big tanky enemy that has a lot of health. It'll slowly chase after you. And it also has the ability to teleport, so maybe cut you off as you're running away from a bunch of enemies. And then the space fox here is mostly just a nuisance. It'll shoot projectiles and it'll also teleport around. And the idea with the space fox gameplay is if you get close to him or if you shoot a bullet at him, he'll teleport, and then you'll have an indicator on screen of where he's gonna reappear, and if you shoot bullets in advance where he's gonna reappear, you'll be able to damage him, but you won't be able to shoot him outright normally. Alright, so let's get into implementing this. Coming into this week, I had some rough implementations of all 3's behavior, but there was a lot of polishing still to do. This is approximately where the turtle was at the beginning of the week. I mentioned I've done a UI overhaul a while ago. Prior to that, I had a health bar for the enemy that you were shooting last at the top of the screen, and so I found that communicating that you weren't damaging the turtle with that was a little bit easier. I'm going to have the story when you first encounter the turtle. It'll tell you that you're not able to damage it unless you melee it, but here I just found that you're not really able to visibly tell that you're not causing damage to it that easily. I have some blood particles that'll come out if you are damaging it, and you'll just get sparks if you're not, but I just really wanted to make it a bit more transparent, so I thought I would add in kind of a shield effect. You'll also notice here, I don't think I've mentioned it thus far, but the player can melee. You get these kind of spark particles that appear. I don't think I've shown that off yet. Here's some footage with more than 1 turtle enemy. A lot of the work this week I just tested with 1 enemy. I still have to really see how they all combine well together. But the idea here is hopefully, as you have the demons that chased after you pretty fast, you have these turtles which are a bit harder to kill. Maybe they'll start blocking some bullets. By mixing up that variety, I'm hoping it'll keep the gameplay fresh and also a bit more interesting, of another wrinkle to present to the player. Last week I had some fun recording my work on that 7-segment display, so I thought for this one I might as well do the same with making that effect for the turtle. So here's a time lapse of some of the work I did. I mentioned in the last video how I struggle doing UI work. I feel like doing work like this, like effects, is kind of the same thing of there are people who are really talented at stuff like this and very specialized at it. And having the time to really focus in on it, I think you can do really amazing things. Whereas for me, being a solo developer, I think my time is limited and I just don't have the time to keep doing passes on this stuff. I may go back to this, but I was fairly happy with what came out of this. It's not perfect, but it does communicate pretty well, and I think it looks pretty cool in the game. So I added a sphere mesh and I cut off the tops and bottoms there. In Photoshop, I set up some hexagons. You're gonna see me mess around a ton with my UVs. I adjust this a bunch of times. I'm sure there's a better way to unwrap this, but I waste a bunch of time here, that's okay. And then I spend a bunch of time kind of adjusting this and trying to get this looking right. I also find with Blender, no matter how many times I do it, setting up transparency in Blender, I always forget how to do it, so I spend a bunch of time there going through menu options, trying to configure it properly. To go along with this artwork, I also add in some additional code. It's actually going to pay off with the Space Fox later on with the effect I add for that, but I set it up so every enemy can have a linked effect to it, and then as I go through I can bring that effect in and out, just because I need to have one of these spheres for every single turtle I spawn if there's multiple turtles, right? And I also added some code that just automates raising and lowering the transparency on models, so I can have it kind of gently fade into the scene and fade out. This was the end result in Blender. I may go back and revisit this, especially with when you knock the turtle out of its shield state. It would be cool to turn this into a skeletal animation and kind of try and have that appear like it's shattering. I thought that might be a neat idea, but for the time being, this is pretty good. And here we have it in game. This has the kind of fade up I mentioned, where the transparency will be raised to show it, and then it'll fade away, so you can hopefully tell that now it's shielded. The behavior of the turtle is basically the same as the first monster, the demon. The only change is just having this shielded state where it's invulnerable while it's in this shield state, but otherwise it's still chasing after the player and trying to get close up. Here's some footage with, once again, multiple. With the turtle in a good state, it was time to move on to the bear. The bear also has pretty similar behavior to the demon, where it'll just chase after you. The big addition was I wanted to have the ability to teleport, so I added in a timer where if the bear has been chasing after the player without hitting them for a certain amount of time, it'll attempt to teleport. You can see there the melee is changed. Instead of being purely animation based like the other ones, the bear animates into this kind of T-pose and then I start rotating it. The same animation I used for the teleport here. The problem of where to teleport the bear to was kind of an interesting one. I wanted to hopefully try and block off the player, so I actually used the dot product to try and find a node which is the biggest difference from the direction the player currently has to the bear. After the bear, I moved on to the Space Fox. The Space Fox is a little bit of a deviation from the demon behavior in that it doesn't actually chase after you, it teleports around. After doing the turtles effect, I thought it would be nice to have a symbol on the ground to show where the fox is going to teleport to before it lands. I did some fun little symbols in here, some Basquiat symbols, some Zodiac killer symbols, and some math stuff as well. And this was the same approach as the turtle, where for every enemy of this type, I'm going to associate it with a mesh or a game object. In this case, this kind of teleport spot. And then when the fox goes to teleport around the map, it'll disappear off screen for a second. This will appear where it's going to land, and then it'll move to there. I think I still need some particles or something for that little symbol, but it is kind of cool seeing it spin around. I also need to kind of adjust some of the numbers on this where I want it so it's really hard to shoot the fox before he teleports away. So right now, after a teleport has happened, I start a timer, and then after that timer, it'll start detecting if the player or the bullets get close, and then it'll teleport away again. I can probably tighten that up a little bit, and I might tighten up the teleport window as well so it moves faster. In general, for this enemy, I think this is more of kind of a synergy enemy where it'll be interesting when you have demons chasing after you and this guy starts shooting at you. By itself, it's not quite as challenging, but I think it'll be a good addition where you now have bullets flying at you as well as enemies chasing you. That's going to do it for today's video. Another 3 enemies added to the game. I'm pretty excited about seeing all the gameplay come together. We'll see once I start to have multiple enemies attacking at once. I'm hoping the gameplay starts to combine and things get a bit more interesting. Hopefully no tricky bugs as a result of that, because I'm a little worried about that. But I just have one more enemy to add, like I was talking about at the beginning. But next week's video I think is going to be pretty interesting. I've got a bit more free time. I'm technically on reading week. So I think I'm going to try and set some challenging goals, maybe mix up the videos a little bit and see what I can get done. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. I'll talk to you guys then. See you later.
Go.